Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. As we all know, modern teams require modern solutions, and a pain point for many distributed teams for many years has been related to things like company credit cards, budgeting, and expense tracking. But this has all been solved by the team over at Ramp. With Ramp, I can issue virtual or physical company credit cards for anyone on my team in just a few clicks. I can actually assign those individual cards their particular limits and rules and track expenditures seamlessly, all in the Ramp system. You can assign as many cards as you'd like, pay for transactions around the world in multiple currencies, and manage your budget all in one place. I really do think Ramp might be my favorite new tool to emerge in the past few years, and I have no idea how I'd work without it anymore. Create an account in minutes and get a free $500 Ramp bonus when you spend your first $1,000 via the About Abroad affiliate link in the show notes. My guest today is my good friend Alex Hernandez, who is a Frenchman living across the border in Spain, but he's also made stops in various other cities around the world that we get into today. He is also the co-founder and CEO at Jobgether, a tool that was built to help people around the world find truly remote and location independent jobs in whatever country it is that they want to work in. And just an all around great guy that I have been wanting to get on the show for a long time. So I was really happy we were able to make it happen today. We talked a little bit about our collective experiences living in Spain and traveling around Europe, some of the things that have impacted us positively and negatively throughout this remote work transition, and of course, how the future of work is reshaping the way people can work, live, and travel around the world. A lot of fun and practical information packed into this one. I hope you all will enjoy it as much as I did. Please help me in welcoming Alex to About Abroad. You know, man, I have to ask you, because I haven't had the opportunity to do this before, but there's this viral picture of you that's gone around where you're like sitting in a swimming pool, I believe it is, working from an empty swimming pool. And I've seen a lot of like those super cool Instagrammy remote work photos over the years, but yours particularly caught my eye here. So I never had a chance to ask you about it. What's the deal with this photo?
Yeah, it's a funny one, actually. So, for you to know, I'm not on Instagram for many years, so I don't know what's trending on Instagram. But so it was probably 3-4 years ago. When I moved to Spain, and at the time I bought a house with my now ex-wife, and we had a swimming pool. And when we bought a house, the swimming pool was empty. And we were launching Jobgether, future of work, remote, and all that. And I thought, one morning I just woke up. I was like, why not, trying to make something a bit different to really catch the attention of people. And I asked my ex-wife, "Oh, can you just help me to put the kitchen table inside the empty swimming pool?" She was like, what's happening? I said, just don't ask questions, just help me. And so she did. So it was like, early morning, our daughter was not even awake yet. And we put the kitchen table and a chair in the swimming pool. I just put the mic, and I just asked her to take a picture of me. And I just shared that on LinkedIn. It got, thousands of likes and comments, and everyone thought that was really funny. I had a lot of comments, and how do you do with, charging? Really, people, took it really seriously. And, everyone was saying, that is the first time I see that particular picture. So I thought, let's, push that to the max. And I just used now this picture as my banner picture on LinkedIn. And I've had a lot of comments from it. And, we always talking LinkedIn should be a place to push your personal brand. And for me, I think it really defines what I think and, who I am, being a bit different, willing to be a bit, different from the rest. and it really goes with my company Jobgether about remote work, future of work. So yeah, it's something I didn't expect to be that viral, but I love it today.
I love it. Now I know the story behind this thing because I've seen it. I mean, literally, I've probably seen this a dozen times aside from just seeing it on your LinkedIn profile or something. People have shared this with me. I've seen it used in like memes and stuff. Because it's not like you're just some, I mean, just to be honest, it's not like you're just some average guy with a laptop, like, working from home. I mean, you're running a successful business and startup, and you have like an interesting story beyond that, and a professional career that's actually like thriving in many ways. So just to see a guy sitting at the bottom of an empty pool working, I think tells you like, I mean, you can do work literally anywhere, just about.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You mentioned that was in Spain, but I happen to know you're originally from France, and I think you mentioned to me before. I mean, you've lived outside of France for many years now. Is that right?
Yeah. So actually, my first experience abroad. So I come from a very small town, in the southeast of France, countryside boy, I'd say. And my first experience abroad is when I was 19. I never really left my small town. And one day I just told my mom, I'm going to Barcelona in 3 days. Couldn't speak a word of English, couldn't speak a word of Spanish or Catalan. Never really been abroad. And just got on a train 2-3 days later and went to Barcelona for 4 months. It's got an interesting story. I can tell you that later. But yeah, that was the first one. Then moved to Spain, to Madrid for my studies when I was 21. So 1 year Erasmus. Not much studies, a lot of party, I have to admit. I had a great year. And then around 24, moved to London. The plan was to move for 6 months. Ended up being there for almost 10 years. And 4 years ago, moved to Madrid, where I really see myself staying now. Great city to live in, great lifestyle, and because we are all remote workers at Jobgether, I can literally be wherever I want. But Madrid is really the place that I want to be in one day.
What is it about Madrid that calls to you? I mean, those are some pretty sexy places, like to have called home. France, just being one of them, to be honest, like it's the most visited country in the world. It's extremely popular destination. So like a lot of people are trying to get into France, and but I mean, I also get that, like when you're from somewhere, the appeal wears off, especially if you have a little bit of like nomad or traveler in you. Like there's a bug that just kind of scratches at you, and you have to go try to serve that need. So I mean, I do get that, but you've lived in some pretty awesome places: Barcelona, Madrid, London, other places. Like, what is it about Madrid that calls to you?
So first, to answer to you about France, I think there's a big, especially from American. You're not really American anymore because you lived everywhere. But France, especially Paris, has this romantic, perfect, beautiful city. I live in Paris for a year and a half. I can tell you, this is not Emily in Paris at all. Um, and I guess when you are French, you are probably a bit, negative about your own country, especially when you live abroad and you see there are a lot of amazing things in France. Don't get me wrong, France is an amazing country to live in. However, you also realize that there are, other amazing things abroad. What I really love about Madrid is, so the city itself, so it's a capital, but it's not that big. It's sunny day almost all year. Now it's really cold. It was like -1 this morning, but it's blue sky. And after living in London for 10 years, I can tell you that blue sky really affects your mind positively. Um, People are just really nice in Madrid, like Spanish people in general, but in Madrid, they are really nice people. They are really nice with kids. My daughter is 6, and it's nice to have people being nice to you. The food is amazing. Um, the lifestyle, they are always out. They are just having tapas and enjoying life. That's maybe one of the reasons why they have a crisis for the last 20 years. They probably enjoy life too much, but you know it's life's short. COVID showed us that things could happen quickly. So I feel happy in a country where you actually enjoy life. So for all these reasons, Madrid is a really good place to live for me.
Yeah, it's kind of got one of those. It's a metropolitan city, but it's not a metropolitan city. You know what I mean? Like it's. I mean, it's a massive city on a. When you compare it to obviously other places in Spain and Portugal, it's one of the bigger cities in Europe, I guess. But at the same time, it doesn't have that same feel that like Berlin or
Yeah,
London or
this
Paris or
is
Rome or something like that.
yeah. For example, Barcelona feels much more international than Madrid.
Yeah,
In
yeah. Madrid
Barcelona,
feels more local.
yeah, in Madrid you feel in Spain. In Barcelona, you feel everywhere, because on the street you just hear Dutch, English, French, a lot of different languages. In Madrid is Spain. So after living in London or Paris for overall 12 years, yes, it's still a capital with, uh, work-wise, a lot of opportunities, but still you have this tinier place, feeling. Especially when you become a dad, you know, your priorities in life change. My priority in London was probably getting out, going out, and and get drunk. Not anymore. So
No time for that these days.
yeah, I'm too old for this. And so yeah, because my priorities have changed. Living in you know rather smaller size city, but with a lot of opportunities still, is really for me the good combination.
Yeah, yeah, and then you mentioned the weather and the friendly people, and I mean, there was something about that for me. I think it's maybe a bit more obvious for like just speaking on like a very high level. Like I think people associate they have a stereotype about like what someone coming from the U.S., especially maybe someone coming from like the tech sector or the business sector from the U.S., like what that person's persona might be like, right? Like you think about like the overachiever, work hard, play hard, puts in 50-hour, 60-hour weeks and gets 5 days a year off. And there, that kind of persona is created. And I think there's on the other end of the spectrum, at least in the Western world, I think a lot of people would put France as like, oh, you're going to take a more relaxed approach. You're going to enjoy life. You're going to have the wine with lunch and chill out. But I think actually like, what I've gathered, I'm interested. There's a question in here because I'm interested to get your perspective based on what you've said so far. Like, I really got a taste of that in Spain. That other end of the spectrum where people were just like really tranquilo, and really just chilled out and approached life in a different way. And it kind of sounds like you made stops in places like Paris and London, which could taint the way that you approach work, I guess. But you ended up in Spain, not in France, and you seem to like that aspect of life there. So I kind of find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I've never lived or worked in the US, but you can probably answer that. You being American, it seems that in the US, work is, in my opinion, probably taking too much space in people's life. Not many holidays, just work, work, work. Things probably have changed since COVID. Maybe people are taking a different approach, maybe, but again, I'm not the right one to answer, so you can do it. In France, in the UK, I would say it's probably closer to the US. France, Spain, Italy, Greece, Crete, you've been living there for a few months, Portugal. I think we are Latin countries. We have a very different approach to life, to food. And why I'm saying food, it's a really important thing that English people don't understand, because they don't cook. And after 10 years living in London, I can guarantee they don't cook. In France, in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy, food is important. Having lunch is important. You don't in London, you just buy these triangle sandwiches and you just eat it on the tube or in front of your computer. In Spain or in France, you take an hour and a half lunch break. You go to the restaurant or you bring the food that you've cooked the day before and you just enjoy that time. Yesterday I was at a co-working and I was with a friend of mine. We went for lunch. We didn't go to Starbucks. We went and we sit down for an hour, you know. And I think the relationship in a way that we, me, French, Spanish have with food really, has a massive impact on the way we live. Spanish, and that you've been living in Valencia, they go for tapas. Tapas is not a meal. Tapas is before the meal. Still for me after 4 years, surprised me that Spanish people at 12:30 on a Saturday go for tapas. And for me, it's like lunchtime. No. Then at 3, they go for lunch. And that really puts, food in a really important place in their life. So naturally, work can't take all the space.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to say that something that was really important to me when I was like, I've gone through these like transitions in my career, and I think you're 100% right. Like your estimations on where work fits on the totem pole of importance for us, it's just kind of like baked into us, I feel like. And so I used to really feel that it would be amazing if I could have a 1 to 1.5 hour lunch. Like that was my, like, if I could reach that level, it would be amazing. And then that sort of like stretched to like 2 hours because I wanted to be able to go get some exercise, have lunch, shower, get back to work. Well, anyway, like my schedule, that number started to creep up when I got access to like, fully location independent, asynchronous work, so I can just like work whenever I want, get my work done. So I have complete control over my schedule. That I appreciate that as much or more than I do the location independence anymore, because I control my schedule. So once that started happening, and that coincided with my move to Spain, that lunch break became 3 hours. And that was partly like because it was something I really wanted. I like having that big break in the middle of the day and everything, but also because culturally it allowed me to make connections and friends and stuff. And when I first moved to Spain, like almost, over 6 years ago now, I guess, like I would not join the, people at the co-working would go out for lunch and I would be like, you're going to be gone for 2 hours. I've got 30, like I had just blocked myself at, 30 minutes or an hour. I didn't have time for that, but I was missing out on important, learning experiences, conversations, friendships. Like that's why you're abroad, is to do those kind of things. So I slowly slipped into it and I love it. And like, I don't think I could ever go back. I appreciate that time and the experience that I got. And it's where I made those instances, or where I made some of my best friends abroad. And so you have to adapt, I guess, like as you're on the journey, like sometimes it doesn't come natural, but it's like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to adjust to the local standard. And sometimes it surprises you. It becomes your new normal.
Yeah. No, fully agree with you. And I think for me today, I'm really trying to have the best of both worlds. Like in the UK, this is where I learned how to work. I was a lazy student, had good grades, but I was a lazy one, just, always choosing partying before studying. But I had good grades, so I could do it. And when I moved to London straight after my studies, I got a big, slap on my face, like, oh, now I need to work. And English people really taught me how to work hard. And I'm really glad I've been to London, especially because over there, if you work hard and you're doing well, you just go up the ladder and you get promotions and pay rise, which doesn't really happen that much in France, for example, or Spain. But now, living in Spain, I'm really trying to keep this hard work because, nothing good will happen to you if you don't put the effort in. Let's be honest. You can't build a startup working 2 hours a day. This LinkedIn guru telling you that are lying. That is not true. You need to work hard. But at the same time, I want to mix that with, the good lifestyle. And remote work really allows me to have that in my life.
Yeah. Well, I think it also brings up a point, like we were talking about stereotypes a few minutes ago, and like, so people do have this stereotype of like Spain is just kind of like, you're very, relaxed, you're living the good life. You're probably not working that hard, and sure, there is some elements of that. But I also know that some of the most successful people that I know in my life, both from like the future of work, remote work world that you and I live in, but also just from like various other business sectors, blue collar work, whatever. Some of the most successful people I know are from Spain, live in Spain, have chosen Spain as their home. So, of course, like it goes without saying, you can't always believe that the stereotypes are true. But I also think there's something about the era that we're in right now where people are really valuing they want balance, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to succeed at a high level. It doesn't mean that they don't want to work hard. We get a lot of value and self-value out of that. So I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. And so I've seen that have like I think a positive impact on Spain. And a lot of people coming in, living there and pushing raising the ceiling a little bit, and I think it's working out well.
Yeah. What was interesting, a few weeks ago, I actually talked to a guy from America who just moved to Spain, and he was telling me that in the US everything is so expensive. Like you probably pay like $12 for a Starbucks coffee. It was like, of course, I was always pushing to get more, to earn more, and at the end of the day, I was just spending all my money, and it's like a race to more. And Spain, so of course, you can say maybe it's a lack of ambition or whatever you want. I don't think it is, but in Spain, I don't feel, and again, I'm not Spanish, but I don't feel that, there is this race to do more. Sometimes I wish it could be a bit more, to maybe have a bit more ambition in Spain. But still, the cost of life is low, and it's quite low in Europe. So you don't need to earn 100,000 euros to live well in Spain. If you earn 50K in Spain, you will live very well, very well.
Yeah, at 60K, you're in the top tax bracket.
Yeah,
at 60K, you enter the top tax bracket.
A lot of people are going to Spain. Americans, in particular, they are moving to Spain. They implemented the digital nomad visa. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, because you can live very well earning what could be a low salary in the US, and plus the sun, plus the good food, plus the good people. For me, it's the perfect combination.
And the access to the rest of Europe. I mean, like if you're someone that is valuing those things and also valuing like being in an international environment, you have from a place like Madrid or even smaller cities like Valencia or Sevilla or of course Barcelona, you can hop off to all of Europe in a couple hours. You can hop off. You can be in Morocco in an hour and a half flight.
Yeah. London is 2 hours away.
2 hours. Yeah. It's wild. I mean, this is why, to be honest, you said, you imagine, that a lot of Americans are wanting to move to Europe. I mean, this is, about half the audience, demographically represents from North America for this show. And that's reflected in my email inbox and whatever, because this is what people are really craving. They're wanting that lifestyle, and it is nuts. Like the cost of living in the US has gone up insanely. I mean, to be honest, like the inflation is real everywhere. So I've been traveling, as we were talking a little bit before we got started hitting record. Like I've been pretty settled in Spain for since about 6 years ago, up until about a year and a half ago. And so I've been out of the US for a while, but I go back, a couple times a year. And since then, though, I've been traveling around Europe, spending a couple months in a bunch of different places. And everywhere you go, everybody's saying the same thing. Oh my God, cost of living has gone up so much. It's super expensive here. The housing market's crazy. So everybody's kind of saying that, but I think I can objectively say that it's like exorbitant in the US. Like when I go back there, I'm just like, I was just back there a couple weeks ago and I'm like, this is crazy.
Insane.
So I think it's even more attractive than ever. And then you add in the fact, like you mentioned, the digital nomad visas and the remote work. And all of a sudden you're like, it's a recipe for people being like, I'm going to put myself where I'm going to live the best quality of life. And the access is there now.
Yeah, that's probably the only good thing COVID brought to us is
Yeah.
I don't think COVID changed things. I think COVID accelerated, that process to a more flexible world. But of course, it's going really fast, and companies can't keep up with it. And that's why we could see remote work going backwards a bit. But it is growing slowly, but it is growing. And I think people, but myself first, finally realized that life shouldn't be about work only. In London, I was doing at some point an hour 15 on the tube every morning and every evening. Leaving my house, I had to be working at 8 sharp. I was leaving my flat at 6:15, 6:20 in the morning, and the worst of that is I never realized how stupid it was because that's the only thing we knew. Like, you were maybe, a digital nomad, or you were maybe working remote because you're one of the first one, but, you were the 0.00001% probably doing it. All the rest of the people, we were just doing that an hour on the tube every morning. And now looking back, of course, I don't regret because, I'm here today because of what happened before, but, all that time wasted. And, when you are in the tube packed, you can't even read, you can't walk. That's literally a waste of your time,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine going back to that once you've stepped out of it. But I mean, so many of us just do it. There are some people, I guess, that do really enjoy that lifestyle, and that's great for them. I think the cool thing about this whole movement is that, like, there's more optionality, there's more flexibility. That's not the only way to succeed. Yeah, you don't have to move to London or New York or Tokyo or wherever the closest major metropolis is, and start your hyper successful career there. You can do it from the bottom of an empty pool in the middle of Spain. So I think that's what's really cool about it.
That's a really good point. Earlier when we talk about France, still now it's changing, but it's still true today. If you wanted a good job in France, you had to be in Paris because all the headquarters were in Paris. So all the incubators, all the investments, like everything was happening in Paris. It's still true today. It's not going to change in a couple of years. But with remote work, we see more and more, companies hiring outside Paris, outside France sometimes. And I think it was true in most countries, except maybe Germany, who has, 5 or 6 big cities. In the US, you probably had to be in New York or San Francisco to get the best tech jobs. So that for me, a really good thing that remote work, has brought to us is, as you said, you can be in the middle of an empty pool in Saragossa or wherever, and have access to an amazing job from a US tech company.
Yeah, it's been fun to be a part of. Like, I'm loving seeing the transition, and I love seeing people like yourself, like you've built a whole company around serving that audience on both sides of the coin, actually, like individuals and companies, which I think is really cool. There's tons of innovation in this space, and it's just going to continue to get better. On that note, I would love, I've mentioned Jobgether a couple times, but I haven't really introduced what you do to the audience. So maybe it'd be a good point to kind of like share a little bit about what you guys are doing, because I do think it's very relevant to the audience and, the future of work movement and people who want to live abroad. Like, remote work is a big part of this. So could you share a little bit about Jobgether? And actually attached to that, I think the sort of the like origin story is kind of cool, because it involves a little bit of an international element as well, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, it's a funny story, I would say. So basically, back in the day, so February 2020, was in Paris at the time. Good job, good salary, good position, but had enough, so quit my job. From one day to another without anything planned. The only plan was to move to Spain, and a week later, lockdown started. Um, I was like, well, maybe I should have kept my job, but I was too late, and I don't regret anything today. But a couple of weeks later, I got introduced with someone called Juan, not Spanish, Belgian guy, who same age. Also, at the time, he had a daughter same age as me. Also had a really good job. He was working for Sodexo, big French company. He was based in Colombia, and just came back to Belgium, and we just talked on Zoom. Obviously, we were both, in lockdown. And after like 2 Zoom calls, we decided to start a business together without knowing each other, without meeting each other. I think the possibility of failure was probably 99.9%, but we made it to the 0.1%, which was great. And we both agree on, today, the majority of people are not happy at work. What can we do to help people finding a more meaningful job for them? Because let's be honest, we spend more time with our colleagues than we do with our wife or husband or kids, which is a shame, but that's how it is. So that's how we started Jobgether, fully remote. We actually didn't meet for the first 16 months of the company. So he was in Brussels, then I moved to Madrid, and then we started to have a guy from Colombia, who then became a third co-founder. Now we are 4 co-founders, and today we are 22 people, 9 nationalities in 13 countries. People from India, Madagascar, Ukraine, Israel, Venezuela, Colombia, Portugal, Spain. I don't even know where everyone is. And what we do, so it's a job portal. It's a job search engine purely dedicated to remote work, because we realized there were some remote portals, but they were mostly US only. So if you live in the US, if you're American, good for you. If you're not, you couldn't find anything. So we wanted to launch something global from day one. So the website is available anywhere in the world. You basically type what you're looking for, where do you live, or where, you're allowed to live. And you will see, for example, if I take your example, Chase, you are currently in Italy, you're American, but you're in Italy. Let's say you're looking for a, head of remote position. So you will type head of remote Italy, and you will see not just Italian companies looking for remote workers, but any company looking for a head of remotely and able to hire you from Italy. The company can be American, can be Japanese, can be German. It doesn't really matter, as soon as they are able to hire you from Italy.
This is what people were begging for. I like right in the middle. When I first met you, I probably had 3 or 4 unopened. Like I'd never forget it, because we were hanging out in Berlin, which was a blast. Great way to get to know each other
At 1 a.m. with a beer.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good night. We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you in partnership with my friends over at Lamont & Co. If you're planning a retreat, offsite, or group gathering of any kind this year, I highly suggest tapping into their extensive knowledge and experience to help you find the best possible venue for your event. I work with Kim, who has become my trusted advisor when it comes to planning any event around the world, and she's literally saved me hundreds of hours of work and has located venues I never would have found on my own. She even provides me with budget breakdowns and cost estimates for each location I'm interested in, and negotiates contract terms on my behalf, all for free. If it sounds too good to be true, I thought the exact same thing at first, but I can assure you this is the real deal. Lamont is paid by the venues, not by you, so there's no cost, risk, or obligation here. So do yourself a favor and contact Lamont via the link in the show notes when you're planning your next group, retreat, offsite, or gathering. If you've made it this far into the episode and you're still enjoying yourself, then I would love to ask a quick favor. Open up the app that you're using to listen to this podcast and leave a quick review. You can do this in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and really just about any platform that allows podcast listening now. If you can't find that in the interface of the app, then scroll down in the show notes and find ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, and you should be able to leave it from there. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. I'll never forget, when you were telling me about what you guys were building, I was like, I literally have 3 or 4 unopened messages right now asking for just this, because people were always saying, hey, this is great, this whole remote work thing. But when I go to look for a remote job, all I can find are US based jobs, or they would be like, quote unquote, remote. But they were like, you have to come into the office 2 days a week or something like that, or you have to live within 30 miles or 50K or, of some city. So it wasn't really fully remote. And so anyway, like you guys were kind of cutting through all of that before anybody else was. And I think it's a very cool thing, obviously for the individuals, but also it holds the companies accountable and helps them get on board with this revolution, which I think is really a cool aspect that probably goes a little bit under the radar.
Yeah, because companies, what I'm seeing a lot is, of course, still it's around 85% of the companies hiring remote workers hire them in their country, US only, France only, Germany only, But still, we see more and more companies finally able to hire people outside the country that they're in. For example, in the US, we see a lot of American companies hiring remote workers in South America. Same time zone, cheaper for American company. People, have good level of English and they have good skills. Western Europe hiring in Eastern Europe. So we see a lot of that, and it's growing, every day. And these companies, I'm talking pretty much every day with companies, with a lot of American companies. They were like, in the US, people know us. We have no issues to attract people because we are known in the US. However, in the countryside of Chile or Argentina, no one has ever heard of us. And we want to hire these people over there, So we, basically helping them to be visible over there.
Wow. Very cool. There's an element, like a B2B element as well, isn't there? Like a product or an aspect of the site that's serving companies?
Yeah, so it's a bit like Google Ads, model. Companies can sponsor the job posting, because we have almost 200,000 job postings, fully remote job postings.
What?
So companies can sponsor their job posting to just appear on top, basically.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think I was thinking about, I just pulled up the website while we were talking here. There's something about the top 100 flex employers and like being able to kind of get like a score associated. Yeah, this is a cool thing on the website.
Companies on the flexibility. We score job postings on the flexibility, and we publish every 4 months a ranking of the top 100 most flexible companies in the world. And they're not always known, and they're not always the one that you thought. So it's quite interesting.
I love this though, because so you've got it separated between, large companies of 500 plus and companies, startups and SMBs, 1 to 500. And so when you toggle back and forth, you can see this. And for those wondering, Oyster and HubSpot are taking the top 2. And then beyond that, you can say like, okay, I'm here on Oyster. I can click on, they have 6 jobs available right now. So they're like ranked number 1 and they have 6 jobs available. The way it flows is awesome. This is what I'm talking about. Like for people listening, like wondering like why spend time on talking about the product itself. It's because this is what people are looking for. This is what people want to know about. They want to know, how do I get remote work so that I can go live abroad and or go travel more often?
And they want options.
Yeah, and they want options, and they want real options.
For us, because we have so many, available job postings, doesn't really matter where you are, what you're looking for, you're always going to have minimum 20, 30 options. In some cases, you could have 500 options for you.
Wow. Very cool. Must feel good. And you've done it like look at your international team that you've got built. What you said, people in like 22 different countries. That's, I mean, for someone like yourself, I like for me, I don't know. This was important for me. I actually left similarly like stable job, great company, like everything was going really well, good trajectory. Couldn't have been happier. There, aside from the fact that I didn't want to be, limited geographically to the U.S., I wanted to be able to travel and explore a little bit more. And the other thing was like I really did crave working in more of an international environment. I didn't even know how to define that at the time, but I was just like, I want to be surrounded by people with different accents than me and who approach things differently. And when we meet up together, we're talking about the same kind of things that you and I are talking about today on the podcast. And so that was actually like a tangible thing that I wanted. Obviously, I have that now at Doist. We're like 100 people from 35 countries. So like every third person is from a different country. So I get exactly that now, but I don't know if that was actually like something intentionally you wanted to design or if it happened by happenstance, but it's pretty cool how it's worked out because I gather that this kind of thing would light you up.
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, nothing was really planned. Starting a company with like a random guy, I just met on Zoom, a couple of weeks ago was not part of the plan during lockdown. When no one really knew what would happen to the world. Now we're laughing about it, but at the time we didn't even know how long the lockdown would be. So now like nothing was planned. But of course, I was stuck in a tiny flat in Paris at the time. Juan was in his flat in Brussels. And then because Juan was living in Colombia, he knew Alexis, who was helping us with the tech part. And then we thought, but that is working. And when you are, and I've been in recruitment for now 13 years or 14 years, and I would say almost forever, we've been hiring people living an hour, 2 hours away from the office. If you think about it, even if you are in a big city, you limit yourself so much because there are a limited number of people living an hour, 2 hours away from your office. And with remote, your recruitment playgrounds is unlimited. When we are looking for, I don't know, at the moment we are looking for a data analyst. We don't mind if the person lives in Australia, in India, in Sweden, or in Chile. We don't mind. And imagine the possibilities that remote work can give you, as an employer. And of course, if you take the other side as a talent, you can be based in the countryside of Sweden and access a job with a German company that you would never access otherwise because you don't live in Berlin, for example.
Yeah, it seems silly not to take advantage of that advantage at this stage when we know that this can work. But nonetheless, you see a lot of companies limiting themselves for various reasons. I'm personally like not interested in trying to convince people anymore. I think the cool thing is there's enough flexibility and availability out there that those of us that really crave it can find it to a large degree. In a lot of ways, like thanks to tools like Jobgether is like helping people actually locate those opportunities. But it is kind of fascinating to see some of the pros get swept under the rug when they're very clearly there for the taking if you want them.
And of course we are in and you're probably the most. We are still in the very beginning of this new paradigm because remote work is not changing the way we work, it's changing the way we live. And I think that's why it's going to probably take many years to really be fully accepted. And because it will just impact psychologic, it will impact a lot of things, the way you raise your kids. I'm not raising my daughter the same way now that I work remote, that the way I was raising her when I was in Paris, for example, going to an office every day. So it's a massive change. It is difficult today it's not just, okay, let's become remote tomorrow. Of course not, either for companies or talents. But I think it's great that we have people like you, Chase, sharing all your work that you do, documenting everything. Um, it's a big transition, but I'm happy to be part of it. And I think I'm really positive about the future of work, and I think the future of work is bright. So as you say, it's no point convincing people who don't want to believe in it. We have enough to do.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's where we've arrived to, and it is cool. One of my favorite aspects of that world that you and I live in is like the build in public mentality, that you've got so many people. You kindly mentioned some of the work that I put out there, but you do the same, and many others do as well, where they're just like sharing, hey, here's what we're going through as a company, here's what we're experiencing. And I've never seen a tighter kind of community come around, a workforce movement like we have with this transition. I mean, I think that's why people liken it to, the Industrial Revolution and agricultural revolution and things like that, because it is so massive and affecting people's lives, like you said, not just the way we work. And like in your case and in my case, for example, I mean, we've been able to transplant and live our dream to live in other places or find better balance for our families or whatever it may be. And that is purely about life, like much less so about work. But at the same time, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing my career at all. And when at one point I totally embraced the facts that like I didn't just embrace it, I did it. I sacrificed my career, like straight up threw it on the chopping block and cut the head off because I wanted to have this type of lifestyle. And it's so cool to me now that it's just, it's not necessary.
One thing you mentioned earlier, and I think it's really important, and is what's working for you today is amazing for you. But that might not be what's working for me, and that might not be what's working for, my sisters, for example. And I think, this new world that we're in is about giving people choice and giving people the freedom to choose what's best for them. If you have kids, for example, your life is so different than when you don't have kids, for example. But just one example, if you live in a city, your life is different than you live in the countryside. And the list can go on and go on. And I think it's really important to accept that what's good for me might not be good for you.
Yeah, totally. No. Totally. It's not a one size fits all sort of thing. I wanted to actually circle back to something. So we both have spent a lot of time living in Spain over the years now, and I've had people on the show who have lived in places like Madrid, yourself or myself, Valencia. Our mutual friend who introduced us, actually, Kara, was on. We talked a lot about Sevilla. Do you have any other places in Spain that have really grown on you? I mean, I'm thinking particularly for the people that are listening, perhaps they're very interested in a move to Spain. Are there any other places you would have considered living, and or just like, areas of the country that you've come to really enjoy?
For me, I wouldn't move, again, because I have my daughter here, but I don't know that city that much, but I have friends there, and Malaga is growing a lot. Google recently, moved, got new buildings in Malaga. Basically, Malaga and Valencia are the two growing cities in Spain. What's good about it is it's still quite cheap to buy, like a flat there. And things are moving, they have airports. It's becoming easier to just, fly there directly. From Madrid, you have a direct train to Malaga or to Valencia. And these two cities, and let's be honest, you are by the sea, warm weather. You don't have the -7 that we could have in Madrid. It's never too hot, never too cold. But these two cities, are growing massively. And again, it's all depends of what you want. If you want more nature, maybe go live in San Sebastian in the north of Spain. If you like the sea, go to Valencia or Malaga or Barcelona. But these two cities, to answer the question, are growing cities in Spain.
Yeah, I agree. I think Malaga is really up and coming. Valencia is obviously a bit more established. I mean, it's the third biggest city, but I would say 5 years ago, it was not really on the map for people. And now Internations ranked it, amongst all the expats across the world 2 years in a row. Valencia is the best city in the world for expats to live in. And I think, Malaga was somewhere on that list in the top 10. It's a smaller city. And I think that's a big thing that, people have to consider when they're moving abroad is like, if you're coming from afar, you probably only know so many places unless you're just like super familiar with that country. So if Spain's the country you're looking at, like you probably know Madrid and Barcelona and maybe one or two other places, but perhaps you haven't discovered a Malaga or something like that. And it's a mid-sized city that's got everything that you need, a lot of community going on there, some of the most beautiful beaches in the country and in all of Europe. And, but fraction of the cost of living, smaller city, much more manageable.
What we discussed earlier, you live in a smaller city, you don't need to earn, that much money to have a good life. Which is quite an interesting point, and probably have access to schools, access to the beach easily, good communication, like with train or plane. I think, you need to think on a lot of things, and Madrid and Barcelona are not the two cities to live in Spain, of course not.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things about that area down there, Malaga, like, the Costa del Sol all along the south and Andalusia, I don't think a lot of people know necessarily that you can be swimming in the Mediterranean, and then in about an hour and a half or less, you could be skiing in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And from those mountains, you can look out over the Mediterranean and see Africa. And like, if that doesn't kind of, get your wheels turning on whether or not it's a cool area, I don't know what will, because that totally fascinated me when I first got there.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's a good place. Well, we share an affinity for the same country. I also love your home country. We didn't get a chance to talk about it much today, but we covered quite a bit. And I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I know we've gotten to hang out a few times. I mean, I think we only hang out in cool places. Like, we were in Lisbon together last year. We were in Berlin together the year before. This one's done virtually.
Meeting in Lisbon again this year.
Yeah. I look forward to that in April at the Running Remote conference for anybody that's interested in what we're talking about. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun, man. I think we finally got a chance to sit down again and chat. So thank you for sharing everything here today. All that you do elsewhere is also very much appreciated. And where can people connect with you, follow your work, learn more about Jobgether, all of that? We'll place the links in the show notes as well.
So first, thank you, Chase, for inviting me. I also had a lot of fun, sharing my story. I'm not a big social, media person. I just use one, and I use it a lot. It's LinkedIn. So Alex Hernandez on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to reach out. If you send me a message, I will reply. Sometimes not the same day, but I will reply 100%. And jobgether.com. It's easy. But you can also find a link on my profile.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have the links to both of those in your show notes. I just put two and two together that you've got Alex Hernandez from France and Juan from Belgium. I would have thought that you guys both came from Spain or Latin America. So I just put two and two together there. But yeah, that's we'll have those links in the show notes so people can connect with you and follow along. Thanks again, Alex. This was awesome.
Thank you, Chase.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.